Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me, and especially to my patrons and channel members. My guest today is Jason, a humanist. Um, do you not want me to use your last name? I did have it on the thumbnail.
Oh, you can use my last name. There's
Okay.
nothing special about it.
Okay. There are some people that keep their identity a secret. A couple weeks
Yeah,
ago, I had on Justin, Deconstruction Zone. Nobody knows what Justin's last name is, but everybody knows what Justin's first name is.
maybe I should become mysterious like that. Maybe that's an interesting plot point.
Ah, yes. Yes.
This is the only episode you'll ever hear my last name. That's it.
Well, you want to know something interesting? I have had 3 people do face reveals on my show. Um, Dark of all Trades, The Barely Bearable Atheist, and Professor Plink all did face reveals on my show. I was so honored.
Wow, that is impressive. Yeah, face reveal. Oh, geez, maybe I should get a mask. I could do that. I could do an interesting mask. Anyway, sorry, I'm distracting.
Okay. Jason has recently discovered humanism midway through the last year. Since then, he has joined Humanist Australia as their live stream host and is focused on building humanism in Australia. He's also volunteering as a social health support person with Humanist Victoria. Jason's married and a father of 2, which is the main reason why he is so dedicated to humanism. He helps build the community with a positive worldview that he believes is critical, as in his opinion, too many people are making politics their religion instead of a foundation that goes deeper than a party. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you for having me.
So Jason, start out by telling us a little bit about yourself. How did you discover humanism, and what does it mean to you?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because as you mentioned, it's a recent one. So last year I was watching the Jordan Peterson Jubilee episode where he versed 20 atheists, which was pretty funny. And surprisingly, it wasn't actually the atheist that convinced me. And be mindful before that. Yeah. Before that, I was agnostic or maybe like more on the spiritual side of things. So I wasn't really like, a Christian or anything like that. But the statement that Jordan Peterson made, or the question, which was atheists reject God, but they don't understand what they're rejecting.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yeah, like that kind of makes sense. And, Christians reject, Islam, and Islamists reject Judaism, and Hindus reject this. And like, at what point do you need to understand or grasp something before you can officially say, yeah, I'm just not going to go down that pathway, or I'm not going to, believe anything's a part of that, religion or etc. And I was like, yeah, you know what, I'll just make the claim. I'll go full atheist. But something I did like about, a lot of religions, and I know it's not all about this, but I know that there's a lot of like community, a lot of like shared foundational beliefs, moral beliefs, and things like that are shared, sort of like there's shared information on what morally good looks like. Whether it's morally good or not is another story. But as a sort of a culture, there is that sort of side to it, which I think is also, important. And hopefully it becomes better over time, as you'd hope with most religions, but unfortunately that's not the case in every situation. I know you guys over there in America are having a bit of a Christian renaissance, I guess you'd say, wouldn't you? Where we've got the Christian nationalists, which is interesting. But from my side, I was like, well, if I'm an atheist, I'm telling people what I'm not what I am. So how do I have those conversations where it's like, well, this is the reason why I don't go around committing war crimes. This is why I try and help people. These are the reasons why I, want to build up community and things like that. I didn't find that saying atheist covered that side of things. And,
Okay.
you can quite easily be an atheist and also a bad person. You can be a Christian and a bad person too. But there's nothing sort of holding you. It's just saying I don't believe in God, as as most part. Now, I have discovered that there are communities since then which are atheist communities. Uh,
Green is addressing, what Jordan Peterson was talking about. Well, if you understood it, you wouldn't reject it, maybe. Um,
yes.
and as long as we've gone ahead and stopped, yeah, that is something I would like to bring up. Is that did what I thought was really interesting in that debate was Jordan Peterson admitting that he didn't know who his God was either. That
Oh,
his God was unknowable. Um,
well, he's a Schrodinger Christian, isn't he?
yeah,
At any
yeah.
at any point, he may or may not be a Christian.
Right, right, right. But really, what I would say is I don't reject God because of what he is or isn't, because as Clement Green correctly points out, we don't understand what, if anything, God is. But what
Mm,
I do reject is who apologists claim that their God is,
mm,
because their God doesn't live up to their own claims.
yeah, yeah, I'd agree with that. I don't think I don't see the evidence of what that individual God is. And I've got too many friends that are, of different religions, all claiming that they know the exact same God, but they're all claiming very different stories. And I can tell you
Yes.
what, I can never get I can never get them people into a room and actually talk about it, because there would be punch-ons.
Mm,
Like, I can talk to them individually and they respect that I'm a humanist,
mhm,
but they could never talk to each other. Like, one's a Catholic and one's a Christian bro, and the other is a Protestant.
mhm.
And neither one, like maybe the Protestant and the Christian bro would be able to get along, but the Catholic, yeah, just wouldn't happen. And the same thing, I've got, Muslim friends as well, and they wouldn't be able to get in the same room. It'd just be an all out war. Um,
Is there
uh,
more animosity between Catholics and Protestants there?
um, I don't think I haven't seen a lot of animosity out on the streets or anything like that.
Mhm.
There's still a lot of you don't talk about religion in Australia.
Mm,
So
m'kay.
I like to be a little bit, controversial in that regards, and I'm pretty charming in the conversational debates and stuff like that. But yeah, there's still a lot of you don't talk money, you don't talk religion, and you don't talk politics in
Mm.
Australia. So probably
Really?
the biggest. Yeah, yeah, like it's getting better. The younger generation are much more involved in politics, which is really nice. But at the same time, as the intro was explaining, is that, yeah, particularly in Australia, we see that sort of the politics becoming the foundation of their values, and
Mhm.
where they sort of cap out in terms of their foundational beliefs and things like that. And I feel like that's an issue, because they sort of like are voting for the party, or the party becomes their sort of religious dogma rather than something underlying of what they judge the party on. It's not always the case, and I think a lot of people do understand that the party isn't uh, a religious leader in that sense. Like, I'm not saying that they believe that it's a religious leader, but they start to get a very defensive of their particular parties in too often. Definitely the older generation here. You bring up the coalition with the older generation, and you point out anything that they've done wrong, and you'll be in for a 2 hour, berating of how the other side are communists, and they'll spend money and this and that, even though when factually, you look at it, we've got two parties effectively down here, just like yourselves, although we've got a very different political system. We've actually got more independent parties in our government, if you didn't know as well, which is a really interesting scenario. But yeah, even factually speaking, our one side, who is claimed to be the spenders,
Mhm.
they are not the same, or they actually spend less than the side that is spending or claim to be responsible economically. So it's just like falsehoods all over the place in that regards. But anyway, sorry, I've diverted too far. Back to it. So with Jordan Peterson, yeah, I was talking to a few people about being an atheist, and yeah, the conversation was like, how do I explain like 2 hours worth of conversation of like, well, this is what I believe is good. This is, what I believe building a community would be like. This is how or even like, let's say, worst thing happens, I pass away. How do my kids know what I believe good is?
Mhm.
How can I just like send through an email or something like that? Or like, here's the sort of like general understanding of my beliefs. And yeah, so I went online and I was like, maybe if I just find any religion that sort of like, is in line with my current beliefs, then I'll be able to have, at least I can say, hey, I'm this, and I'm not, I don't believe in the God part, or I don't believe in this or that. And I was thinking it was probably going to be like Hinduism or Buddhism or something along those lines, because
Mm.
I've seen a few of them. They're pretty well. I've heard different stories about Hinduism more recently, but uh, the Hare Krishna Hinduism seems to be, somewhat, pleasant. But yeah, I was going down that path, and then I found humanism, and then as soon as I found humanism, I found a online volunteering service, which was with Humanist Victoria. So I signed up for that. Humanism is
I've been
just,
holding this question for a bit, and I was thinking you're about coming to a place where it's a good place to bring this in. So
yep,
humanism is a stepping stone between believing and not believing?
stepping stone between believing and not believing.
I don't think it is. I would not agree with
No.
that statement.
Like from what I can see, and I've done a little bit of research on humanism, enough to claim, I'm a humanist for sure, but I, still very new into it, so I don't know everything about it. But what I can see is that even though it's a part of the modern declaration of humanism that we don't believe in God, it doesn't seem to state that there is no God. It's just that
Mm.
there is no evidence of God. And for sure, so for instance, I believe that if there was evidence one day, that pretty much every humanist would turn around and go, well, yeah, clearly that's the evidence of God. So therefore we'll, believe in God. Um,
Brian
but
says,
it's
"No,
the
humanism is the end destination."
Yeah. Very definite on that one. And I think that that's fair, because I'm a humanist. But there comes to the point of, we're very much on the evidence. What is evidence of, you know, a God? We don't believe in unicorns because there's no evidence. Like that's a pretty simple one. We don't believe in an afterlife because there's no evidence. It's not to say that that can't exist. Just like back in the days before they knew about atoms, they had a hypothesis that came true, stuff like that. But until the evidence is there, you can't claim it's true. So, if,
Mage says, "If the number of gods you believe in is 0, you're an atheist."
yes, yeah, that's fair.
Mm, mm,
Um, and yeah, I don't believe in any God myself. I'm not saying that no God can't exist, but
mhm,
it just doesn't seem to. And I would certainly say that no God that we've seen written down exists.
mhm,
So any of the well, we know that Norse mythology and stuff like that is not true, but any of the the biblical gods, etc., that it just doesn't seem to play out, and it's too inconsistent. And he's either all knowing or not knowing. He's playing with lives. He's not playing with lives. He directs your lives. He doesn't direct your lives. Just pick a side. But I'm not
mhm.
opposed to people believing God. I think that that's the important part. If you want to believe in God and it makes you a better person, ultimately, I'm here to I'll support you all the way. I think a person doing good, believing God, is better than a bad person not believing God. If that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yep, yep, that makes sense. There's a somewhat famous conversation between David Wood and Matt Dillahunty, in
Mm.
which David Wood asked Matt Dillahunty whether or not he should quit believing in God, and Matt Dillahunty said, "Well, would you go and murder people if you didn't believe in God?" And David Wood said, "Yes." And Matt Dillahunty said, "Then please keep believing in your God."
Yeah.
Um, but there is some evidence, it's not been proven, but there is some evidence that David Wood's whole backstory may be fake.
Mm.
And when that backstory was no longer getting him the publicity that he wanted, he then came out and admitted to being a pedophile. And
Well,
of course, that generated even more publicity.
uh-huh.
Um, Now he claims that this was before he became a Christian, and this is also something that he got control of it, but, by being a Christian, but that is one of the things that I see is, as a believer, one of the things that I kinda struggled with was that I had a very boring story.
Mm,
I had never been a drug addict. I had never been in jail. God didn't convert me from some horrible person to make me something better. Okay, I didn't believe, and then I did believe.
yeah. Yeah, I'm much the same. Like my childhood, really nice. My I was baptized, Church of England from memory, and then they got my name wrong. My mum actually brought out the Baptist certificate recently and showed me that I was baptized as James. So that was a funny one. But that turned into a big party. My mum was never really into it. My dad was nearly never really into it. They didn't push any religion onto me. They were sort of like, we're in Australia, we're sort of like culturally Christian, and so it sort of like goes around that you're like, oh yeah, sort of like, the stories and all that sort of stuff, just like any
C&E
culture.
Christians?
Sorry?
C&E Christians, do you have that term there?
No, I haven't heard that one. What's that?
C&E Christians are Christmas and Easter Christians, people who go to church on Christmas and Easter.
Yeah, no, I would say we're even less than that.
Ah, okay,
And
okay.
yeah, and a few like even my religious friends, I ask them if they go to church and stuff like that, and they're like, no, no, I just believe in God, or I've read the parts of the Bible that I like and things like that. So I'm like, oh. And I pushed them. I said, go to church, like get involved in the community, like become a part of it, like. But they're no. Um, but yeah, so my mum's probably more spiritual now, which is
Oh, really?
interesting. Yeah, yeah, she's very much into the universe and things like that. And my dad, he's probably more just, I don't know, a boomer, classic boomer of, well, something's good, but he's got no belief in God or anything like that. And they're both very happy, but the CMA Christians. Yeah. Um, But yeah, I've actually got an interesting one where because I was going through this like spiritual stage, I was like really hoping that we had some control over our faith in from a spiritual perspective. So I did like a big deep dive into spirituality before I became more agnostic. One of my issues with spirituality was that it's so westernized, like in the
Mhm.
like westernized spirituality. It's you only believe some of the things that you believe in because you live in a good country like, one of the worst ones is like, oh, you get to choose your parents. Well, that means that some people choose to have abusive parents, or you get to choose what life you want to live. So that means that some people are choosing to be abusers. Like, this doesn't make sense. You're only making this claim because you're a good person yourself, like, and you feel good about that ability. Does that make sense?
I'm confused here. The claim is that people choose their parents?
In so we've got a lot of spirituality happening over here in Australia, and
Uh-huh.
yeah, a lot of the claims is that for these people, you get to choose your parents.
Are they, like,
So
reincarnated and they were, or is this just a pre-life? Is this they existed in pre-life and then they choose
it,
their
it
parents when they
it's very hard to lock these spiritual people down. Um, so
I believe that.
So depends what day you talk to them. It may be reincarnation. It may be like that they've lived forever. It may be that they're a part of one thing. It may be that this is the first life and it's a trial. And depending on what day you get them on, you might have all four in one conversation. And they also speak in a lot of riddles. So it's like they'll go from one to the other just to see where you're at, but they don't actually really have a committed position themselves, which is probably fair. But yeah, at least like try and side with one thing. But a lot of it is just based on the fact that they have a good life. And so
Mm.
therefore they then feel like that's the answer. I've got good parents, so therefore you must choose your parents. No, I don't. I think that that's hard in that mindset. Um,
So, do people that live in African countries where starvation is prevalent, those people just made bad choices when they chose their parents?
like that's the discussion, isn't it? And
Mm,
it's like, they always come up and like, well, like, yeah, in that scenario, no, like maybe I don't know, but like, something, and it's like, no, like you're in Australia, or like in America, I'm sure that you've got spirituality over there. You're in a pretty good country. That's why you believe, like, this like sort of reincarnation, or this choosing side of things.
mhm,
But I think, like, yeah, choosing bad parents is one thing, but like choosing what life you're going to live, that's probably worse in my eyes, because that means that some people are choosing to be, the Epstein types, you know.
mhm,
So that's way worse. I'm like, dude, like that cannot be something you believe in. Or even the reincarnation one, that's horrid as well, because it kind of, one of the things I don't like about that idea, I used to love the yin yang, surprisingly, and
mhm,
the whole balance and things, and I kind of still do. But my issue with the yin yang is that there is always going to be evil, and so, like, I don't believe that anymore. I believe that we can move to a world where we are majority, positive. We don't have to. I don't need to experience, or we don't need to have experiences of abuse to know that abuse is wrong. We shouldn't have to do that. And I'd be very surprised if anyone says that, no, you need to know that doing that sort of stuff is a bad thing. We can go, no, you're taking away autonomy, you're, creating harm. We can already tell that that's bad before we even do the action, if that
Okay,
makes
there
sense.
seems to be some confusion in the chat here about what humanism is. Clement Green says, so humanism is religion without the scented candles. And no, I don't think that is what Jason is saying at all. I'll let you clarify, Jason. What is humanism?
So humanism is a foundation of life. It sort of carries the idea of what the morals are, a collective idea of morals and ethics, etc. It is a based on compassion and reason, and so from what I can see, it's not limited to just. There's not a dogmatic sense of like, hey, this was written 100 years ago, and therefore we believe in it. It's updated regularly, and we look at what makes a good society. What is good? My candles. um, yeah, it's looking at, like, what makes a society click in a good way. So what does good mean on the ethical basis? And yeah, I think that there's a lot to it. If you look up the Modern Declaration of Humanism, there's about 4 tenets in that, which was written in 2022, and it's like, it's keeping the wonder alive in life, or allowing you to sort of keep the wonder alive in life without having to believe in a god or anything like that. So it's saying that you can, it's saying you can, or that it being human is, seeing awe and wonder in, that mountain range that you're climbing up, or the rainbow that you're seeing. It's saying that that's a very human thing, based on evolution and things like that. We care about other people because of evolution and traits, and here are the good traits that we want to sort of, like, build upon. um Thought it said Tonka,
He's
like yellow trucks. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I get that a lot.
Oh,
Yeah,
really? Oh.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm, mm,
Every Tonks actually has a nickname of just Tonks, so
mm,
that's so
okay.
Tonksy. But
Do you
yeah,
remember the old commercials, Tonka toys are made for boys?
no, I don't. No,
Oh, that was
it,
back when I
I'm
was a
interested.
kid, which was long before you were born. But yeah, that was their
I
slogan,
could
"Tonka
be, I could
toys are
be
made for
well
boys."
aged.
What?
I could be well aged. I'm in my mid. I'm in my mid 30s.
I have children older than you.
Um, but yeah, so humanism gives you the foundation of life, a direction, a blueprint of what a good life is. It's closer to Confucianism than anything else, I'd say.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but humanism is really detached from religion. One can be a Christian humanist, a secular humanist, a atheist humanist, a Buddhist humanist. You humanism comes it's more of a philosophy, it's not really a religion.
It's not a religion. If you look at the a humanist manifesto way back in 1933,
Do you need
excuse
some
me,
water?
it was
I
yeah.
can talk while you go get some. Oh, okay, you've got some water right there. Okay.
If you look at the a humanist manifesto of 1933, it was definitely positioned as a religious alternative. Knowing or sort of looking at the way that people that stepped away from religion felt a sense of loss, and it sort of comes down to the idea that a lot of people, we seem to be sort of we've seemed to have evolved to have a yearning for some sort of foundation or yeah. It is a good one. It's an interesting one. Check it out. We seem to have a yearning for some sort of uh, like a god or an afterlife or some sort of part of a belief. There's even an interesting study. I don't know if you know this one, but there's a part in the brain that, when activated or deactivated, actually your increases how much you believe in religion.
Mm,
And if you deactivate it, it decreases your likelihood to be susceptible to religion. Funnily enough,
interesting.
it's also apparently connected to being racist, being fearful, and other things like that. So if you increase it, you become more racist and things like that. So it's a really interesting study I had to look into. But on the alternative, if it's completely deactivated, you almost have no fear of anything that's going on. So there seems to be some component that's connected from our survival basis of, like, when we're chimpanzees and stuff like that, of this trait helped us survive. And so therefore that's why we yearn for, or a lot of people yearn for, religion today. So
Okay,
when you talk about
there's
humanism.
there's a series of comments by Theoretically that I'd like to bring up because they all go together.
Mm,
Um, let's see. I need to find the first one. Okay. The first one was, "You can only be a secular humanist." And then he said,
yep.
"Humanism means interests over scripture,
Hmm.
but you can be a theist or atheist humanist. The first humanists were theists."
Mm, yeah.
Um,
That goes back to the Renaissance period, I believe, and I haven't done enough research on that area to grasp what's going on there. But yes, these days, humanism has been separated more so from religions, and so now if you talk to most humanists, they will push back and say no, it's not a religion. But it definitely seemed to have started from that Humanist Manifesto as a religious alternative, and it's so heavily linked to religions, even to the point that I actually get more pushback from atheists when I say I'm a humanist than I do from religious types, which is fascinating, because when I tell another religious type that I'm a humanist, they're like, "Yeah, that's fantastic. It's good to see that you've got a foundation." When I tell an atheist that I'm a humanist, they're like, "Why do you need a label? Like, why do you
huh.
need to label yourself?" I'm like, "Well, you've already got a label. You call yourself an atheist, so what's the difference? Like,
Mhm,
I'm an
mhm,
atheist and a humanist. What's your
mhm.
second part?" And they're like, "Well, I don't need one." I'm like, I don't know how do you tell me what type of person you are?" They're like, "Well, just talk to me." I'm like, "I haven't got time for that."
And the jelly man says, "Hey, realists."
Yeah.
Okay,
Um,
and that kinda leads us into another area that I wanted to ask you about, which is, have you always been an atheist, or were you raised you said that you were baptized into the Anglican Church, but your parents didn't
yep.
really believe in it. Did you at
Mm.
any point believe in the religion?
Um, I think there was, like, times when it's sort of like you you sort of go, "Yeah, like, I feel like there's a God there," or something, like, because you're so heavily surrounded by it, and everyone else is talking about, God being real and things like that, and you sort of just fall into that trap. I never really put any energy into it. I've never read any of the parts of the Bible, so I've never
Mm,
believed to that extent.
mhm,
I don't remember going to church. I don't
mm.
recall people, doing anything like that. And yeah, funnily enough, in Australia, it just seems to be that a lot of people believe in God, but don't
Mhm.
really do much more with that information. It's like, yeah, God's real, probably. I don't know. See how it goes. That seems to be the Australian attitude for most people.
Mhm.
Um, we're actually becoming less and less religious over here in Australia. I think like the last census was something in the range of like nearing like 40 or 50% were non-religious, which is quite, good. But they're the majority of people, and particularly down here in Melbourne, we're the very progressive country. I guess where you're, is it Florida? No, California.
Um, w you okay, you're comparing Melbourne to Florida or California?
I think it's California. Gavin Newsom, that's the one,
Yes,
California.
yes, that's California.
Yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, yeah. So Melbourne's like California, bit
Okay.
more progressive than the other countries or other
Yeah,
states.
Florida is the exact opposite.
Yeah, yeah.
Florida is absolutely nuts trying to push religion onto people.
Yes, yes, yes. And I think our Texas is, Queensland, so I'm pretty sure. But anyway, that's a different thing. Um, but when it comes to, can you be a Christian humanist, I feel like there's a bit of a push at the moment, it seems, that more and more individuals are discovering what humanism is, but they're still holding on to their old beliefs, or they still want to believe in a god, but they're like, well, no, I like all the traits of humanism. I think that that's really great, and it's logical and it's easy to understand, but I don't want to, I don't want to give up my current sort of side. So they're like, I'm a Christian humanist, I'm a conservative humanist, I'm, there seems to be like lots of stick whatever word in front of humanism, and that's the humanism flavor of that you're looking for. Got transhumanism as well, which is an interesting one. But yes,
Wha
sorry,
oh, what
excuse me.
is that? What is transhumanism?
That's sort of like transcending uh, what it is to be human. And I
Okay.
believe
So
Yuval
you
Noah is a
transcending, like,
transhumanist.
into another life or transcending what?
There is, from what I can see, two versions of it. There's one where it's sort of like uh, the scientific version, which is more on the lines of cybernetics, extension of life,
Mm,
becoming like moving away from the natural side of things about humans and becoming more on the scientific, further and further. Um, like you'd probably consider Brian Johnson a transhumanist in the sense that he's trying to overcome death, which is a natural component of life.
mm,
You then have the spiritual version of transhumanist, which I've seen floating around, which seems to be more like spirituality. And it's like, I haven't looked into that one much, but yeah, that's like, transcending the average human life. And effectively it boils down to a mixture of Hinduism, Buddhism, and paganism. So,
okay.
yeah.
Storytime Jesus brings up an interesting question. AI bots and enhanced humans? Does humanism extend to AI?
So in the recent Declaration of Modern Humanism, there was a addition of sentient beings. So do not cause harm to sentient beings along the lines of that.
Okay.
That does that doesn't limit the harm then to so if the AI bot was to become sentient, then and it could feel harm, then
Mhm,
we should be a good thing would be to not cause harm for that sentient being or the AI bot then, and I think that that's a fair call.
mhm.
If an insect, can feel harm, you shouldn't do harm to that thing, or you should limit it as much as possible, for sure. So,
So
a
do
lot of
you
humanists
sweep up
become
the ants and release them outside?
yes, probably not ants, because they're a bit harder and they just come back. But well, I don't know if you know this, but Australians have a very good attitude towards spiders.
Oh, really? What is
Yeah, yeah.
that?
The big huntsmans that you see on like all the Australian posts?
Yes.
Yeah, so we keep them in our houses. We actually, if we see one, we just like we give it a name and we, let it roam around the house and all that sort of stuff. We actually love those spiders.
Oh, goodness
Um,
gracious.
yeah, no, we don't kill them at all. They're actually the good ones because if you got one of them, you don't have all the other bad ones. So
Ah,
they're good.
okay, okay.
Little daddy long legs, we keep them in the corner. My wife Steph, she hates spiders, but I'm like, no, no, that's a good one. We want that one. Yeah, it's no, no, it's our house. It's ours. We share.
I think she
Um,
means the spider. It's the spider's house now.
yeah, no, no, we share. We share our houses with the spiders. Um, but yeah, I remember when I was a kid growing up, heaps of spiders. But yeah, so the answer would be we do collect them and put them outside if we need to. Um, but sorry, I keep getting sidetracked. When it comes to what I was when I was younger, do I believe in it? No. There was never a point where I fully invested into the idea of Christianity or any other religion. There was a good point when I nearly fully invested into spirituality,
Okay.
uh, which was 3 years ago. I really went into like, is that something? But then, yeah, as I was explaining it, it just became far too westernized. And it turns out to be that Australian spirituality, for the most part, is just a mixture of paganism, Hinduism, and Zen Buddhism. It seems so. There's a lot of meditation, a lot of chakras and all that sort of stuff. It just sort of mingles in together. But I did come up with an interesting thought when I was going through my spirituality time frame, which is it's this. So when there isn't one God or there isn't one religion, it's actually all of them are true. Now, I'm not saying that this
Mm,
now, but
mhm.
but take it back into my mindset back then when I thought like, is there something? Because I was like having so many discussions with so many religious people and spiritual people. I was like, well, okay, what about if they're all true? But just like a file on a computer, if you try and open a music file with in Adobe Acrobat or something like that, technically speaking, it's still ones and zeros, and so you'll get something, but it's just not in the correct format. So you're not going to get. It's going to turn out, garbled and etc. What if your life here is actually a file and you need to find the correct application to unlock like the full potential, if that makes sense.
So each
And
person has their own god, and you have to find the correct one?
effectively so.
Okay.
And I would even say today, I'd still believe that to some extent, not in the sense that the gods are real, but that some people are going to find far more benefit from being a Christian than they would ever find as being a humanist. In the sense of like, as you were saying with that Matt Dillahunty discussion, if he didn't believe that God existed, he would go around killing people. So if that's the case, then we have to sort of embrace the idea that a single path isn't going to be necessarily the correct pathway, and we shouldn't go down that because that turns into what is it, Stalin communism, where they started killing off Christians and stuff like that, which we don't want to do that. But it's very much embracing the idea that you can't have one dedicated pathway. Not at the moment, anyway. Maybe in the future. Who knows? In 1,000 years from now. Although considering how long the Bible's been around for, maybe not. So, but if that makes sense.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Um, let's turn to politics a little bit.
Ooh, I love
Um, if that's not a taboo subject for you there in Australia.
not for me.
Oh, okay.
I can't I can't just to put a disclaimer in case anyone is from Australia and wondering why I'm not backing any particular parties. We're not allowed to back any particular parties as a not-for-profit because I'm with Humanist Australia. So, but I can talk about policies and I can say I like this policy or I don't like this policy.
One thing I mentioned before we came on was that I'm interested in your perspective on what is going on with the United States right now,
Mm.
because you are getting different news and news filters than we are. What is your perspective of what's going on here?
where do you start with that one? Um, okay, so the perspective that most Australians have of American politics. Let's just start with like the outer realm of like what it looks like to us, and then we'll zoom in on certain areas. With the humanism room. Um, uh, so from the Australian perspective, when we talk politics, and it's surprising that more people in Australia know more about American politics than they do about Australian politics.
That's
Um,
interesting.
it's fascinating to that extent, and it's so much so that they even get concerned that things are happening in Australia, like laws are being implemented in Australia because of what's happening in America. So some people get that sort of caught up on it, but for the most part, when we look at American politics, it is it's a pastime, and it's like a reality TV show. Now, I know that that's very different for you guys over there who are living that reality TV show, but for us over here, it looks very much like, there's always drama happening, there's fights happening and things like that. Um, you guys have gone global with the fights more recently, but in terms of like, when it was back, last year or something like that, it was very like fascinating to just keep up to date. It's like keeping up with the Kardashians a lot for us over here. We actually don't. A lot of people over here don't even know much about our current. No, that's accurate. A lot of people over here don't even or don't actually understand our Australian politics. We've got, but I'd even argue it's really fascinating. And if any Americans are looking for a good like Game of Thrones story, just check out Australian politics. It's so fascinating. There is so much happening at any point, and there is backstabbing. Like you've heard about, we went through about 9 prime ministers in about 9 years because there was backstabbing almost every step of the way. So just hilarious stuff.
How
Not very.
many political parties do you have?
How many political parties? I think upwards, depending on what state you're in, but generally speaking, there's about probably like I think about 20 or so recognized like political parties that if you're talking to people on the street that they'll probably know. That there's 4 big political parties, which is the Labor and the coalition. And I'll get to the coalition because that's really fascinating. Labor is our Bernie Sanders party. We have a Greens party, which is further left than that again. So that's like, probably a little bit further than Bernie Sanders, I believe. And then we've got the coalition, who is your Democrats effectively. And then we've got One Nation that seems to be your Republican Party. So they're the sort of the 4 big names that everyone will know. And then we've got Shooters, Farmers and Fishers. And we've also got a party called the Nationals, and we've got a party called the Liberals, and they join forces to make the coalition.
Mm.
So it's very fascinating. But yeah, there's always turmoil. Back to American politics, though. We feel sorry for you. Well, 50% of the population feels sorry for you. The other 50% is, Republican sort of positive, I guess you'd say.
Mm.
Which is interesting because they don't grasp the policies of what the Republican Party are trying to do. They don't grasp that they wouldn't actually ever vote for that party themselves over here in Australia.
Mm.
So, but they're sort of like, well, I like Trump, or I think that Trump's doing a good thing, not understanding that that's actually causing a huge amount of pain for the American people themselves in a lot of ways.
Well,
So
not
it's
to
no different.
mention the people of Palestine and the people of Iran, and
Well,
yeah, he's
not even
causing
forget.
a lot of harm to a lot of people.
Yes, but similar to how you guys have like, a good chunk of your population that's Republican, no matter what, we've got a good chunk of our population that sort of is just siding with that. And
Mhm.
once again, because they don't see the policies, they're only seeing the rhetoric, and they end up siding with that sort of stuff anyway. So yeah, it's an interesting one, but I think the majority of people are questioning why you guys have such uh, layers of healthcare or lack of layers of healthcare. They question, the like we don't have guns over here, so we question a lot of
I
the
wish we
school
didn't
shootings.
have guns over here.
Yeah, and that's something like, a lot of Australians are like, "Yeah, we actually appreciate the fact that we don't have guns over here." We had our first major, mass shooting in, like, 30 years, which was the Bondi shooting of the Jewish, what was it? The Hanukkah, holiday? I
Uh-huh.
think it was. And that sent, like, ripples through Australia.
Mhm.
And actually brought in some, we brought in some major hate speech laws because of that, and readjusted our gun laws.
We'll get to that in just a moment. Maya brings up a really good point here. Trump has bombed Iran, Venezuela, Somalia, Yemen, Iraq, Syria, and Nigeria. So many countries that when I was naming them, I couldn't even remember them all. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for reminding me that there were a lot more than just the ones I named. Okay, let's get back to your point. You had to rewrite some hate speech laws because of what was it again?
Um, we had, we had a political party that was in the midst of being developed called the White Australian Party. And that was a neo-Nazi party, and we're not talking like, that they were like, oh, they were kind of adjacent to neo-Nazis. No, they were like outright neo-Nazis,
Mm,
very clearly, on that side. Uh, what was interesting was that there was no laws to prevent them to even become a party. So yeah, they could be as hate-filled as they want. We've got protection of political freedom of speech, so we
mhm.
can, if anyone in America says that we don't have freedom of speech, we've got political freedom of speech, to that extent. uh, but yeah, this party effectively was, going to become, and they were very much like, racist, get rid of all immigrants, get rid of this, only allow white people in, all that sort of stuff. The new laws have now come in to effectively say you don't have to be specifically stating like, kill, X, Y, and Z, you to be gauged or judged as like you're actually encouraging hate speech or threatening language, etc. And you don't even have to be the one saying it. If you're connected to the party, you donate to the party, you support the party, that's enough to say, well, you're probably a part of the party then. Speech denying others humanity shouldn't be protected. Well, yes. And it's such a it's been a hard question for me to sort of like, gauge because, where do we sit on freedom of speech? I still don't know where I sit on it. I honestly, I know the ramifications of if we start getting rid of freedom of speech beyond the point that we are, where that can lead to, some really bad things. But at the same time, how much do we protect freedom of speech and how much do we go uh, into the investigation to protect freedom of speech? And I say that because this is a current question which I'm, putting out to a lot of people that really push freedom of speech is online. You can, we argue to protect everything that's said, basically. Like if someone wants to be abusive, we protect it. If someone wants to, tell lies, then we protect it. And it should be up to the country to protect that freedom of speech. But how much should it be up to a country to protect freedom of speech of non-citizens or bots? And I don't know where I don't think that we should. But how do you determine that someone's a non-citizen or a bot, and therefore their speech should be protected in your country? You
Mhm,
know,
mhm.
um, you guys in America, I know that you put up with this all the time. You always have bots, particularly Russian bots and things like that, bringing you guys down, causing division, and all the rest of it. How much should that speech be protected when it's not even a human? Does a bot have freedom of speech? And how do you know it's a bot? And should like you like I'm assuming you grasped the question, but like, yeah, I don't know where I stand on that. I don't think we should.
Well, we do have a Supreme Court decision which set the test for what speech can be prohibited, and it's the
Mm,
Brandenburg test. From the case Brandenburg versus Ohio. But part of the problem is that test was developed in, gosh, let's see, what year was Brandenburg versus Ohio? I can't remember. There we go. 1969, before AI bots existed.
Yeah, it's a little
And our
older.
laws have not kept up with technology. And the way our system works, uh, legal change is slow, and it's never going to keep up with technology.
Yeah, yeah. And even if it did catch up, like I still don't know where that would even like stand. Like particularly in America, you guys have an interesting constitution which gives rights to a lot more people, it seems, than that are not citizens. And in part, it gives those rights to non-citizens because to protect your own citizens or give your own citizens those same rights, you have to give it to people you don't know as citizens. For instance, like you've got the freedom of what is it, pleading the fifth, where you don't have to say anything. You can't be, randomly checked and things like that. We don't have so much that in Australia. So, for instance, if you stay silent, that can actually be used against you in the
Mhm,
court. Over here, if you deny the cops, I was looking into this the other day. If you deny the cops the ability to access your phones, that can actually be used as like, yeah, you don't have to technically give it to them, but that can be then used as evidence that the jury can look at and go, well, you didn't give the password, so there's probably content on there, of sorts. So yeah, we've got like a lot of differences in that. But yeah, when it comes down to the end of it, and the hate speech laws, I'm currently siding. I'm currently siding with the if the speech isn't, if your speech is to push, effectively, if you at the end of the day want to remove rights from me, then I can't fight for your right to that freedom of speech, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah, there's a lot of people that use a similar phrase here, your rights end, your right to swing your fist ends at the beginning of my nose. The problem is that there are too many situations that doesn't cover.
Mm.
Um,
Mm. Because it's sort of like one of those situations that if as soon as you get into power or your party gets into power, you take away my rights, I can't advocate for you to push that sort of rhetoric. I don't feel like that's right.
mhm.
And it's sort of like one of those situations that if what is it, that if good men do nothing, then evil prevails, or something like that. That yeah, if you just allow or if you encourage that rhetoric, then it's only going to get worse and worse.
Mhm. Story time, Jesus says, "I have a big metaphorical nose."
Um,
Uh,
but yes, one of the things that I'm not appreciative of the American sort of culture being pushed over here would be interesting is that we've had and I'm not saying so much that you guys have pushed it so much, but
mhm,
we've
mhm.
had the sort of the new coming of age of Nazis sort of coming out.
Mm, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I've got a
That's
few
been going
friends.
on here for probably about 30 years now.
Yeah, it's caught up now.
It was a very small sect, and it was people that we pretty much ignored because there were so few of them, and nobody really cared about them, but now they've become much more prominent.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because we've sort of stepped into this new age where we sort of like, back in the day, you had the communists, and then, and they were vilified and all that sort of stuff. And now today, someone can call himself a communist, but it doesn't have the same meaning. They're not talking Stalin communism. They're not talking like, that sort of stuff. And so but you still do have those like extreme communists,
Mhm,
but you sort of they're broken into two sort of categories: the extreme communists, and then you sort of have like university communist. Um, it feels like there's two lines of Nazism these days,
mhm,
where you've got the white supremacist Nazi, and then you've got this other Nazi, which is I've heard Hitler's speeches, and I kind of like what he says, but I'm not a white supremacist. And it's like,
Be careful how much you use the H word and the N word.
okay,
YouTube
sorry.
could shut us down for using that word too much.
The H word.
The NZ word and the HIT word, the name.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Those,
Yes.
because of the way those things are being used, YouTube
Yeah.
is trying to make an effort to keep that out. And so, yeah,
All right. I'll be mindful. Sorry. My
that's
apologies.
okay.
Which is funny because I've seen so much of that content recently.
Oh, really?
Trying to keep, I'd like to keep up with what the young kids are doing these days. So I have watched my fair share of Nick Fuentes, for instance. Hopefully that's not a banned word, although I wouldn't be surprised if that comes up as being a banned word soon.
I could
But
be
yes,
wrong. I've just seen a number of people using euphemisms, and I thought that was the reason why. I
yeah,
should say I was told that was the reason why.
I wouldn't be surprised, and I'd probably encourage it myself, honestly. But yeah, so I know a number of people that they are avid defenders of Palestine, for instance, avid defenders of what's of Iran, for instance. But at the same time, they're they believe in the Austrian painter or whatever it is, and it's like I don't understand how those two can sort of connect together, but they don't believe in the parts which he did that were pure evil. They're like, I'm just not sure about that part. I don't understand how that could be right. And so you sort of have this, what the supremacist types, and then you have sort of like this lukewarm. I like what he says, but I don't like the supremacy part of it, or I don't believe that he was a supremacist in that way.
I have one question for you with regards to something that's going on here in politics, and it's going on in the UK as well. So I'm not sure if it's there in Australia, and that is the movement against transgender people. There's a movement in.
Oh, is that me? Have I lost you? I cannot hear you.
Sorry. Yeah. There's a thunderstorm here, and
Ah.
evidently a lightning strike muted my mic. Sorry about that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, in the UK and the United States, they're trying to take healthcare away from transgender people. The real backing behind it here in the United States is it's a long-term movement to get rights taken away from women.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
is that going on there?
This isn't my area of expertise,
Okay.
so don't quote me on everything here. But as far as I can see, there really seems to be nothing in that regards. We have Medicare over here, which
Mhm.
gives universal healthcare to every citizen. It's something that's near and dear to our hearts. Every Australian fights for it. Nearly every Australian fights for it. I have met some that fight against it.
Okay, but what's going on in politics is to ban the healthcare entirely. Not to say that these people can't get healthcare, but saying that um, you can't transition. We won't do reassignment surgery. We won't allow you to have cross uh, gender hormones. We
I
won't allow you any healthcare that would assist you in transitioning.
Yeah, as far as I can see, there doesn't seem to be any
Okay.
discussions around that.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, I don't believe it's covered in the extent of like the Medicare, but I don't believe there's anything that has gone on to discuss banning that to any extent. Well,
Mm.
funnily enough, Queensland, our Texas, they only not too long ago allowed abortions. I didn't realize, and so that was an interesting thing. But yeah, that was a big push over there, and so yeah, there's really like Australia's like pretty simple when it comes to this. Like, just give people their rights. There's obviously the the people that push against, like, extreme, like, third trimester abortions and things like that. We don't have that, unless medically specific, and everyone's sort of like, yeah, that makes sense. So we just don't have that. Like I said, our coalition is effectively your Democrats, so they're already somewhat on the side of, like, not going too far. We don't have that sort of far right extreme movement at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay, we are about out of time. Is there anything, Jason, that you wanted to talk about that we didn't cover?
um, I think the only thing which I'd like to push on is building up humanism in Australia. I think that's
Okay.
a big push that I'm trying to encourage at the moment. And the reason is because I bring it back to the religious side of things, is that there is a lot of people that oh, thanks, Mayor. There is a lot of people that are starting to step away from religion, and I encourage that for within reason. Obviously, if you step away from religion and start killing people, then not good. Stay with religion. But there is a lot of people that are stepping away from it, and they don't. There's not a huge amount of support out there for when you become just like an atheist. And so these people, I find, are stepping into different areas and making that religion, or making that community, their religion. And I get concerned when it's sort of like they will step away from a religion, but then they'll move into like an online flat Earth community. And those people are so
Mm,
embracing that they're like, oh, I love this, and they feel that that's their community. And so all of a sudden but that isn't based on good values. That's based on how much you believe flat Earth exists.
mm-hmm.
And so then it's like, well, but so I can still be a bad person and my community still likes me because I believe flat Earth. That's not a good situation. So one of the reasons why I gravitate so much towards humanism is because the community has that underlying level of morals and values that you can say, hey, are you being a good person? Are you causing harm to others? And you shouldn't be, and like doing that sort of side of things, and also supporting people that need help. Where do they go to besides the psych? I don't believe that society we should have therapists, but we shouldn't rely on that as the sole area of assisting or supporting people through mental angst and things like that. So I'd like to see more of a community build up where we can support each other, not not because like that's what we need, but like I think that there's that sort of underlying value system there. We've lost a lot of it
Mm.
too often, too recently. So.
Okay, very good, very good. If people want to get in touch with you, where should they get in touch with you?
I will be floating around. We've got a Humanist Australia group on Facebook. We've got the Humanist Australia Facebook page, and we've got the Humanist Australia YouTube channel, which I'm putting out different ideas and thoughts and videos on that. Building it up, but as I go along, I'm trying to not be too deep divey and a bit more just opinion based. But I will caveat that sometimes I just don't know.
Okay. Okay, very good. Next week, the show will be a group of friends. The primary guest is going to be Jenny Morgan. For those of you who do not know, Jenny Morgan was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. She told me what kind of cancer it was, and it's something I had never heard of before. But she is in the hospital and is likely to be there for quite some time. This is not a good situation. We're going to be talking about end of life things. And we're going to have a number of Jenny's friends on to support her through this very difficult time. Mage Grey Wolf is going to be there. Sinister Porpoise will be there. Purple Rhymes with Orange will be there. The Kentucky Atheist will be there. And I'm trying to get Stephanie Helms, but I have not been able to get Stephanie Helms' attention to get an answer from her if she is available at that time or not. So that is what is going on next week. Make sure to join, and we will talk about dealing with end of life issues. Jason, thank you so much for coming. It has been a pleasure having you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure. I probably rambled a bit, but hopefully it all makes sense at the end of the day.
I think
So,
it did. I think it did very much.
all right, thank you.
Live your life.